A word of caution. This episode features descriptions of 2 brutal murders as well as mentions of child sexual abuse material involved in one case. Please take care when listening. In the fall of 2021, a 41-year-old veterinary technician and mom was found murdered at her residence in Greer, South Carolina, the crime scene covered in rose petals. As investigators learned more about the victim, they found a history of relationships with controlling older men and shocking evidence on USB drives in the home, along with a perpetrator who appeared to be on what he believed was a mission from God. We'll also discuss the kidnapping and murder of South Carolina paramedic Phonesia Machado-Fore, who died senselessly when an intruder broke into her home and then embarked on a cross-country crime spree all the way into New Mexico. There is much to love about North and South Carolina, but the two states have also had their fair share of violent and senseless crimes over the years. From murders on the Blue Ridge Parkway, in the heart of big cities or sleepy college towns, and along the coastal waters, some of these stories may be new to you. Some may have happened in your town. Some may involve people that are still missing to this day. But all will leave you remembering to always be vigilant about the people you meet and the places you go. I'm Renee Roberson. Please join me for Missing in the Carolinas. Episode 149, The Murders of Christina Parcell and Phonesia Machado-Fore in South Carolina. I first learned about the 2021 murder of Christina Parcell in South Carolina through a People magazine post on Instagram. The magazine covers a lot of true crime, and the headline of the post, "Pianist who made shocking claim about why he killed vet tech is convicted of murdering her." When I saw the crime had occurred in South Carolina, I put it in my files for further research. Once I began looking into the details, I was led to even more disturbing evidence than I was expecting. Not only that, I immediately knew that this was a crime I had to write about carefully because the perpetrators of the murder accused the victim of a lot of questionable and unsavory activity, and she's no longer here to speak for herself. I'll try to share the facts as I understand them to be true, as objectively as possible. I do want to note that I checked out a lot of different sources for this episode, and it was interesting to see how information was covered or downplayed depending on what the news source was. You'll see what I mean once we get into it. On October 13th, 2021, 65-year-old Bradley Post discovered his fiancée covered in blood and unresponsive in the front room of her sister's home in Greer, South Carolina. Post had been trying to contact the 41-year-old Christina earlier that day by phone, but his calls to her remained unanswered. Concerned, he went to the home of her sister Tina, and that's where he walked into a crime scene. His fiancée had been dragged throughout the home, placed in the front room, posed, and covered in rose petals. The Greenville County coroner later ruled Christina's death a homicide due to multiple sharp force injuries. She was stabbed at least 31 times with a sharp object. At the time of her death, Christina, who was also the mother to a 9-year-old daughter in elementary school, was working at the Foothills Veterinary Hospital in Greenville, South Carolina. She got glowing reviews from both her coworkers and the owners of the pet she helped care for at the clinic. At the home, investigators found memory cards and a laptop computer near Christina's body, along with a clear Ziploc bag that contained a white powder substance. The Ziploc had spots of dried blood on it. Her cell phone and purse were also located inside the home, with 2 envelopes each containing $500 in cash. They discovered a firearm inside a bag located in a suitcase in one of the bedrooms. Police found more USB drives and a plethora of paperwork related to an ongoing custody battle with the father of Christina's daughter, a music producer named John Mello. Mello had waged a vicious harassment campaign against Christina after they separated, and she accused him of stalking her. Mello had a history of this type of behavior leading back to his first wife. According to an episode of 2020 that covered this case, Mello took Christina to court in 2016 and requested primary custody, alleging Christina was mentally unstable and not able to provide adequately for their daughter. He received primary custody with Christina having regular visitations. After a few years, she obtained an attorney to help her obtain more visitations. In October of 2020, Mello took their daughter out of the country to Italy during his custody battle with Christina. While at first she had no idea where he had gone with her daughter, a Facebook post and photograph helped her determine which country they were in. He faced criminal charges for custodial interference in Greenville County. She was reunited with her daughter in 2021 and moved in with her sister Tina. Mello continued with threatening Christina and sending her harassing messages via email. On October 19th, 2021, 6 days after Christina was murdered, her fiancé, Bradley Post, was arrested and charged not with the murder of Christina Parcell, but as part of a child sexual abuse material, or CSAM, investigation. Investigators had discovered evidence of this child sexual abuse material during the search of the home where they discovered Christina's body and obtained images from his cell phone, which he had turned over to police as part of the investigation. According to Fitz News, police discovered more than 15,000 images and video of child sexual abuse material on 9 electronic storage devices while searching the home where Christina was murdered. In February 2022, Christina's daughter and one of her female friends were listed as defendants in 2 civil lawsuits alleging Christina Parcell and Bradley Post took pictures and videos of them in states of undress and posed in sexually provocative positions. Based on these lawsuits, the motive for Christina's murder emerges. On November 3rd, 2021, 32-year-old Zachary David Hughes, a Juilliard-trained pianist, was arrested and charged with Christina's murder. Prior to him turning himself into authorities, Hughes had been preparing to begin a job on an international cruise line. Prosecutors in the murder case had obtained Ring camera footage from the home across the street from Christina's, showing Hughes dressed in a black hoodie and a backpack entering the front door of Christina's residence at the time of the murder. DNA collected from underneath Christina's fingernails matched that of Zachary Hughes. Investigators also used information gleaned from flock camera footage to put together a timeline of Hughes's whereabouts at the time of the murder. Flock cameras are license plate recognition cameras that capture vehicle images and license plate data, which is then used by law enforcement and local communities. Now, on a side note, flock cameras have also garnered complaints from people who don't like being surveilled without their permission because law enforcement doesn't need a search warrant to pull data from flock's cloud storage. Also, these cameras differ from red light cameras because they aren't triggered by a specific violation. Instead, they use AI technology to create a fingerprint of each vehicle surveilled, including the demographics of the vehicle and building a profile of where it had been. Currently, flock cameras are located in more than 5,000 communities across 47 states. In Greer, police found that flock camera footage showed a bicycle in the bed of Zachary Hughes's truck. That bicycle matched the description of one used by the killer exiting the home after Christina was stabbed to death. Investigators also uncovered that Hughes and Mello had been communicating through the WhatsApp messaging service, and the cryptic conversations led them to believe the 2 men had been discussing a plan to murder Christina. So who was Zachary Hughes and how was he connected to this case? Hughes was born in California and raised with 6 other siblings, 5 of which were children his parents adopted from Russia. The family moved to a small farm in Virginia, and Hughes's parents soon realized they needed additional income to sustain themselves and their large family. Hughes stepped into the role of primary caregiver for his younger siblings, which, as you can imagine, caused him a lot of stress. He began playing music on an upright piano his parents had purchased at a yard sale, and soon discovered he had an aptitude for the instrument, especially in the realm of classical music. It provided him an escape from the pressure of his family life. He entered competitions while in high school and soon picked up multiple prestigious awards before applying to the Juilliard School for Piano Performance in 2010. He received several different scholarships after his acceptance. According to reporting by Fitz News, after graduation, he attended the University of Tennessee to work on a master's degree in piano performance, but for some reason, he enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps during 2018. While in officer candidate school, he received stress fractures in both his legs, forcing him to withdraw from the training. He was recruited by the Greenville Unitarian Universalist Church to play piano in a performance they had scheduled. He moved to Greenville and, with the support of the church, planned to perform all 32 of Beethoven's sonatas from memory during a 250th anniversary of the composer's birth in 2020. The church and Hughes agreed to request donations at these performances and would split the proceeds evenly. But just after his third performance, the COVID-19 pandemic shut down live performances. At some point after this time period, Hughes crossed paths with John Mello, who billed himself as a music producer. Hughes was working for Mello, cleaning his house and taking on other odd jobs for the man when Christina was murdered. The trial of Zachary Hughes began on February 11th, 2025. On the second day of the trial, the judge ruled that any evidence of the child sexual abuse material involving Christina and her daughter was not allowed to be introduced as evidence, despite objections by Hughes's attorneys. On day 3, according to Court TV, the jurors heard from an investigator that had nude pictures of Christina linked to an escort website, along with a letter that said the victim worked under the pseudonym Carolina Warren. It wasn't clear when she was working as an escort, because at the time of the trial, the Greenville County Sheriff's Office said the escort website was no longer active. Now, the 2020 episode about this case featured a representative from the Greenville County Sheriff's Office refuting this information. He said from what they could tell, the nude photos were from Christina's time when she was in a relationship with Mello, and it looked like someone had tried to copy and paste her information onto an escort website through photocopying. They didn't seem to think the listing was legitimate and couldn't corroborate that she had ever worked as an escort. Jurors also heard about the hundreds of messages Mello and Hughes exchanged on WhatsApp. The messages contained a lot of coded language and the use of numbers in place of characters. Prosecutors determined that the two men had conspired to send out packets containing nude photos of Christina, including one to the attorney assisting her with her child custody case. Mello was still living overseas at the time, but Hughes helped him with his campaign of harassment. Cell phone records showed the two men talked for 2 hours the day before the murder and an hour and 20 minutes on the afternoon after the stabbing. Zachary Hughes had hoped to convince the judge and jury that he had committed the murder in defense of others, because John Mello believed his daughter was being sexually exploited by Christina and Bradley Post. However, his defense team failed once again to get the evidence about explicit images introduced as evidence into the trial. On the 6th day of the trial, Hughes testified and shared all the details of the day of the murder: how he bought a gun, knife, and a gift box to hide the gun and the roses. He put together what he called a murder kit with gloves and paint thinner. Mello had told him their daughter would be in school that morning and Christina would be alone in the house. Hughes knocked on the door and told Christina he had a delivery for Christina Parcell, her sister. When Christina told him Tina wasn't home, he forced her inside with the gun. He told the jury he had reservations about carrying out the murder, but felt it was the only way to protect Mello and Christina's daughter. Christina tried to fight back against the attack, but he overpowered her and stabbed her to death, fearing the gun would cause too much noise and alert the neighbors. He tried to use the paint thinner to wipe his DNA from her fingers after she died from her injuries because she had scratched his face during the assault. Notes from Court TV showed Hughes presented no signs of remorse during his testimony. He told the jury John Mello had offered to pay him to take the life of Christina Parcell on 2 different occasions, but that he refused. Although the judge had warned Hughes not to make any references to the sexual abuse or images, he violated that order 3 different times. By the end of the day, the judge found him in contempt of court and sentenced him to 6 months in jail. Later that evening, John Mello was arrested at his home and charged with accessory before the fact to a felony and solicitation to commit a felony. On February 20th, 2025, Zachary David Hughes was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Christina Parcell. The jury, which consisted of 7 men and 5 women, also convicted him of burglary, second-degree harassment, conspiracy to commit second-degree harassment, and possession of a deadly weapon during the commission of a crime. The jury deliberated less than 3 hours. Bradley Post remains incarcerated at a South Carolina detention center, awaiting trial for third-degree criminal sexual conduct with a minor and third-degree sexual exploitation of a minor. John Mello is also still incarcerated and awaiting trial for his involvement in Christina's death. The custodial interference charges against him were dropped in April of 2024. Attorneys for Zachary Hughes, Mark Moyer, and Andy Mormon have filed a motion with an appellate court for an appeal. Mello and Christina's daughter is now living with family friends of John Mello's. While I personally don't believe in vigilante justice, I do believe there is more to the story than what was allowed into Zachary Hughes's trial. But I hesitate to speculate too much because we still don't have all the facts related to the CSAM case. I'll keep you updated on any new developments in Hughes's appeal and the possible trials of John Mello and Bradley Post. Before we continue, let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsors. This summer, I'm happy to report my skin is still blemish-free and sporting a healthy glow, even in the throes of perimenopause. Along with plenty of exercise and a healthy diet, I can thank the skincare products from Skinx Erin for this. I use her pre-cleanse oil, hydrating beauty oil, and perfecting night oil, and I was hooked from the first drop. The pre-cleanse gently removes dirt, impurities, and even waterproof makeup without tugging, all without stripping or drying out your skin. In addition to keeping your skin clear, it helps your skin feel firmer and reduces the signs of aging. The Hydrating Beauty Oil is a powerful and effective skin hydrator that never leaves your skin feeling greasy. The signature squalane oil is known for its anti-inflammatory and anti-aging properties. It's perfect for treating skin conditions like acne and eczema and reducing the appearance of wrinkles. The Perfecting Night Oil is loaded with vitamins E and A and is rich with antioxidants and omegas that nourish skin, replenish elasticity, and reduce stretch marks. A few drops a day leave skin smoother, more vibrant, and youthful. My skin instantly drinks in these oils, and I've never had a problem with them leaving residue on my clothes or sheets at night, only giving me a healthy glow that my husband often compliments me on. Skinx Erin has a new online home at midnightriff.com. Not only can you now shop fantastic skincare products that show real results, but there are clothing options too. Want to try out the products for yourself? Go to midnightriff.com and use the code MissingCarolinas10 for a 10% discount on your order. I had been unhappy with my old podcast host for a while and was looking for other options. I discovered Riverside FM and learned that for one low monthly fee, it would help me record the podcast and utilize video capabilities. It uses AI technology to easily create clips from each episode that I can share on my social media accounts. I don't consider myself very tech savvy, but audio and video editing with Riverside FM software has been a breeze, and I look forward to recording days now. If you're looking for a company that will help you with all your podcasting, webinar, and video needs, I encourage you to check out Riverside FM. You won't be disappointed. I'll include a link in the show notes for you. And now, let's get back to the show. Phonesia Machado-Fore was a 52-year-old mother and grandmother from PD, South Carolina. She had worked as a paramedic for Florence County EMS since 2017, and her EMS director described her as being very happy-go-lucky. He said that she was always around, always had a smile, and just loved her job and loved people. Phonesia had recently accepted a job in Minnesota where one of her daughters lived, and her family had planned to help her move. Prior to her disappearance, Phonesia was last seen on March 12, 2024, in her home. When her family couldn't reach her, they grew worried and reported her missing 2 days later. Her body was found near an abandoned home on Jones Drive in Dillon County the same day that she was reported missing. She lay face down in her pajamas and slippers. She was restrained with zip ties and duct tape and had a dog shock collar around her neck. The shock collar was presumably used to keep her from calling out for help. She had been shot in the back of the head execution style, which the autopsy determined was the cause of her death. On March 15th, Phonesia's white BMW was located in Tucumcari, New Mexico, over 1,000 miles away from the scene of the crime. Jeremy Smith, a 33-year-old from Marion County with a lengthy criminal record, had possession of the car. He was apparently trying to change a tire on the BMW when 35-year-old Justin Hare, who was a New Mexico State police officer, approached him to offer help. Smith proceeded to ambush and murder Officer Hare before stealing his patrol car and fleeing the scene. Smith crashed the patrol car 14 miles away, near mile marker 304 on I-40. The BMW linked the murder of Officer Hare in New Mexico to Phonesia back in South Carolina. The BMW linked the murder of Officer Hare in New Mexico to Phonesia back in South Carolina. Authorities launched a manhunt in multiple states. On March 17th, authorities located Smith in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He had been recognized by a store clerk who proceeded to alert the authorities. Smith attempted to flee when the officers approached, and a brief pursuit followed. He was captured after some exchange of gunfire, and he was taken to a nearby hospital so that his injuries could be treated. He was kept under armed guard for the entirety of his hospital stay. In Marion County, the police filed 17 charges against Smith. These charges included murder, kidnapping, carjacking, conspiracy, burglary, gun charges, and grand larceny. Charges were also filed in New Mexico. The police investigation revealed the circumstances around the abduction and murder of Phonesia. The GPS in her BMW was useful in the investigation, as it revealed the timeline of events. Law enforcement did run into problems due to the investigation involving multiple states. They believed Smith had worked with an accomplice, and this was confirmed. Joshua Johnson, a 30-year-old man, had joined Smith after Phonesia was murdered. The two met up at her house and proceeded to commit burglary. The men stole several firearms, as well as her roommate's 2011 Chevy Silverado. The two continued on a crime spree within Marion County before leaving the state. Smith and Johnson split up in Texas, with Smith continuing to New Mexico. Due to the interstate nature of Smith's crimes, he had to stand trial in multiple states. The first one was in New Mexico, and the second one in South Carolina. Smith initially pled not guilty to the crimes. The trial in New Mexico was set for June 10th in 2024. However, it was delayed due to Smith's defense requesting more time. The trial would be delayed several more times, pushing it all the way into 2025. In August, prosecutors decided that Smith would not face the death penalty in New Mexico. Jeremy Smith pleaded guilty to the murder of Officer Justin Hare on January 17th of this year, and he was sentenced to life without parole in April. The case in New Mexico for the murder of Officer Hare has come to a close, but Smith has yet to stand trial for his crimes in South Carolina, as the charges are still pending. It is unknown whether or not South Carolina prosecutors will seek the death penalty. The actions of Jeremy Smith devastated two communities. The New Mexico State Police were grieving the loss of their colleague, as was the Marion County EMS. A representative from Marion County Sheriff's Office made the trip to New Mexico to attend Officer Hare's funeral. The New Mexico State Police did the same, sending several representatives to Phonesia's funeral. Sheriff Brian Wallace said on the department's Facebook page that Fore's family was presented with the New Mexico state flag and a photograph of Officer Justin Hare. Sheriff Wallace also stated that the Fore family was hurt, angry, and they want justice for their loved one just as much as we do. I'll keep you updated on the status of Jeremy Smith's trial in South Carolina. This brings us to the conclusion of this episode of Missing in the Carolinas. Thanks to Mia Roberson for her help with the segment about Phonesia Machado-Fore. If you enjoyed this episode, please do me a favor and give it a 5-star rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you'd also like to support the show in a small way, you can buy me a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com, Renee Roberson. Thank you so much for those who have already supported me through this platform. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, so please like our pages and get started on a discussion of the missing people profiled on the show. Do you know of a missing persons case or true crime story in North or South Carolina that you think should be covered? Email me at missinginthecarolinas@gmail.com with any details you can share. Cover art for this podcast was designed by Macintosh Multimedia. Sound editing is provided by Daniel Roberson. Thanks so much for listening.